For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
And warmer for the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Heaps with myself, Greg Heaps Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got a great podcast for you guys. We're going to be going with a two-part conversation today because, man, things have really slowed down in terms of the news, the roster changes, what have you, in college basketball. I think that we're really starting to reach the, shall we say, end point of a lot of that. Now, we are probably going to see like one or two unexpected coaching changes, what have you, but certainly things are starting to wind down on that front, so we're going to be having a lot of conversations to get us set for the upcoming season, and today we're going to have our chat with Riley Davis. He does such great work over at eCheck CBB, taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball, does great work with Sleepers Media as well, and he's based out there in the great state of North Carolina, so we're going to be talking a lot of ACC, we're going to be talking a lot about the Tar Heels themselves, taking a look at NC State, and so much more, and if you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you, for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we'll fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind that they meet us not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline, and the other way is via an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, everything that is powered by EdgeBoost. Over at EdgeBoost, they're making sure that bettors are able to access the funds that they want to all day, every day, 24/7, 365. And when you go to edgeboost.bet, type in that promo code of Greg, Greg. That'll give you a dollar for dollar match on your first deposit up to $25. Now let's chat with the man himself and Riley Davis, who does such an amazing job taking a look at this great game of college basketball, and you're able to follow him on Twitter/X at his first and last name, Riley Davis. You've got an underscore between Riley and Davis as well, between the first and last name, the number 3 altogether. And Riley, it's always great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Yeah, Greg, good to be talking ball with you again. I hope your summer's been going so well, and I got to give a plug. I love watching your video beer reviews. Those are, if not a daily watch, definitely a weekly watch. Keep plugging away with those.
Absolutely. And Riley, I know that you've been doing an amazing job taking a look at everything here in college basketball in the offseason, and just what have you made out of this offseason, and what have been some of your takeaways from what I think has been the wildest and craziest offseason we've ever seen?
Yeah, one of the big takeaways, I think, is like the international, maybe even call it the globalization of college hoops. And especially really for the past month since the portal closed, it seems like you get a couple announcements a week of an international player, usually a high level one coming over to play for a big time program, or at the very least like a good power conference school that's been sort of on the rise. And I think tracking some of those moves has been one of my favorites to do, and to lock in a little bit to see what these international guys can bring to the table, because I think it's really fascinating, just most of them coming from a professional league, usually a pretty high level one, and very excited to see how that translates when they play against Power 4 competition.
Yep, I think that is going to be a lot of fun. And how much would you say that there has been that big divide between the have-that and the have-nots, between the mid-majors and everything that we're seeing in the SEC, ACC, Big Ten, and Big 12?
Yeah, it seems like when it comes to the money side of things, you're hearing these massive NIL budgets being thrown out. My program that I cheer for, UNC, a couple weeks ago, there was the report of the $14 million roster, in Kentucky with the $20 million roster. And it seems like there's just another boom. And even going back to like the international players, you're seeing, I think the main reason for why these guys are coming over is because they can make much better money here playing at a Power 4 school than they can in whatever league they're playing. It's like interesting looking at some of the salaries there where, if you're getting a 7-figure check from an SEC, a Big 12, Big 10, ACC school, like they might triple your pay, what you might be making in whatever domestic league it is or one of the other top leagues.
Yeah, it really is. And I just think that makes things so interesting from a little bit more of a recruitment standpoint as well, because with these power conference teams, it used to be where you would have all of your blue chip guys always be going on over to your Dukes, your North Carolinas, your Kansases, what have you. And they're still landing a bunch of really good freshmen. But how much do you think a little bit of, shall we say, the difference that we're seeing in college basketball right now is a few of these shall we say, top 100, top 150 fringe guys going on over to these smaller schools, because with all these teams wanting to get a little bit older, with all these teams wanting to utilize the transfer portal, I think that the mid-majors are starting to get a little bit craftier and are starting to offer some of these freshmen more playing time than what they can get in a typical situation whether they do go to a power conference.
Yeah, I think that's a wise move. It's a wise way to pivot. It's like anytime you're working with a program that has a smaller budget than maybe the bigger names, I think adaptability and being willing to like take a swing and get creative with how you manage your funds can be a wise way to try to adapt to find an advantage. And I think, well, in some ways it felt like high school recruiting was devalued in recent years, but at the same time, Greg, you look at some of the guys even ranked in the top 50 who decommit early in the offseason and end up getting bigger paydays from a better school, like someone like a Caden Lewis, who I know is a top 30 kid, not quite top 15, not quite 5-star, but decommits from Kentucky after their portal haul, then heads over to Villanova and presumably for a bigger payday. I don't know. So I'm like, I don't think it's going to completely lift the mid-major teams. To maybe they can clean up in the back end of, like you were saying, the kids ranked like 80 to 150th. It still seems to me, even with the ways that high school recruiting has been devalued with the portal and has opened up opportunities for other schools, that you're going to still see guys who reopen their recruitments who are ranked in the top 50, let's say, and probably get a little bit better payday than what they initially committed for. So, yeah, some of that I still think is pretty fascinating to monitor and to track.
No doubt about it. I do think that we are in such a changing landscape in college basketball, but as some things change, some things remain the same. And out there in the ACC, certainly with regards to some of those, shall we say, more middle of the road teams, I think it's going to be a little bit better for them this year. Obviously, you're a man from the great state of North Carolina. You're a Tar Heel alum. And how do you take a look at what the ACC has done this offseason? Because I feel like necessary changes were made in terms of coaching hires that were brought on here in the offseason, because the biggest thing for them is losing guys like Leonard Hamilton, Jim Boeheim, Tony Bennett. You go down the list of legends. I do think that just having the coaching hires that they've had this offseason is really going to be able to put this conference back on the map.
Be trim. The bottom of the league, I still think, will be really bad. If you look at some of the depth chart for some of these teams, even someone like a Florida State right now, it's like I struggle to see how they're going to get much better even with the new coaching staff in place. However, when you look at schools like Virginia Tech, that's the hope that at least all the schools at the bottom, whether it's like Boston College, they should probably stay there. Cal, I don't think will be good either. But when you look at teams that were like at the bottom of the bottom last year, like Miami and Virginia Tech, I think the hope would be that some of their talent infusions should raise them up. Big fan of the kid Neoklis Avdilas, the Greek point guard who just committed to Virginia Tech. I think Mike Young showed he could still coach last year. He still won eight league games. Don't look at who they were against, because they were against some really bad teams. But still, he won 8 league games with essentially an A10 roster. And finally, Virginia Tech invested more and gave him a little more money to play with, to where now you look at some of the guys he's bringing in, whether it's retaining Toibu Lawal in the front court, Amani Hansberry coming over from West Virginia, and adding Neoklis Avdilas. That's a pretty good trio to build upon, to at least not be abysmal, to not be a Q4 game, for your opponents. I think Miami as well. I like the move of hiring Jay Lucas, and then they've brought a lot of talent in, whether you're looking at Sheldon Henderson, who was like a McDonald's All-American. Malik Renew, I think, has kind of been an empty calorie stat guy throughout his career, but maybe under a change of scenery, Lucas is able to unlock some of the talent that once made him a fringe 5-star kid. I think Ernest Uday should translate as like a rim protector, lob threat type. Just as a whole, it seems like some of those teams that were just not playing serious basketball last year should at least be competent.
Yep, I'm right there with you. With the likes of Boston College, it's been relatively rough for them. Georgia Tech, I'm wondering what they're going to be this season as well. Obviously, Miami was a complete and utter dumpster fire. You mentioned them, and I do think that them being able to go northward is going to be big, as well as Riley Davis, who does such a great job over at HeCheck CBB. He is joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops, and Riley is indeed a North Carolina graduate, so I feel like this is a good stopping point for part number 1, and then in part number 2, we are going to talk with Riley about what he's all seen from the North Carolina Tar Heels this offseason. What do you expect from them this upcoming season? Also ask about the NC State Wolfpack and a few teams that he's liking for this upcoming season. That's on the flip side right here on Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Beast and Family Podcast.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Great to be rejoined by Riley Davis. He does such great work over at eCheck CBB. Today, get a look at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball. You're able to follow him on Twitter /X at his first name Riley and underscore and then the last name Davis and then the number 3 all together. And we left off talking about a few of these ACC teams. I know that we were talking about some of the dregs, some of the teams that have been holding down the conference, but you're a North Carolina graduate, so let's dive in there. It's been an interesting offseason for them. Going to be very much new look after we saw RJ Davis just be at the program for forever and a half. You saw Ellie Kadu in the backcourt last season, and now those guys are gone, but I felt like last season we saw a departure from what has made North Carolina so good for so many years, and that it's typically been built around the front court. And what I like about this North Carolina team is that it does feel like the emphasis on rebounding, the emphasis on being strong down low, that's back once again.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the front court will be much improved. Could even go from like one of the worst in the league to one of the best. Even a cursory look through the ACC, I struggle to find a duo that I would like better than Caleb Wilson and Henry Vasar. I know Vasar's got he's someone who I'm exceptionally high on. I know he played a little under 20 minutes a game last year, but just in the flashes that he showed, like you see the two-way impact, the ability to make plays on the short roll, make reads at the top of the key. I think he's so versatile and will really open up the rest of the offense. Maybe there's a little bit of like offensive potential still left to unlock in terms of being able to create his own or give him the ball in the high post and let him go to work, see what happens. And with Caleb Wilson, he's someone who I think even Carolina fans are sleeping on, a top 5 talent in his class, and really good, really underrated passer. I think supreme athlete, improving shot, and just a defensive menace. So I think those two should work really well together. And I think Carolina will play a lot through them. It's because when you look at the backcourt right now, a lot of guys still trying to prove something. And then you have the Montenegrin sort of combo guard wing, Luka Bogovac coming over, who I think profiles as the alpha on the perimeter. But aside from him, you're wanting to see if Seth Trimble can make another leap and if Kyan Evans can step in and be more of a lead guard as opposed to just a complimentary off-ball piece.
Yep, absolutely. And I do think that Evans, who you just mentioned there, is going to be really the X factor because he was rock solid towards back half of the season from Colorado State, but I think that he's a little bit of an unknown. I do think that him going up a level, it's just a case of where I think that he's going to be solid in year number 1, but is he really going to be that guy in year number 1, or is it going to take year number 2, year number 3, like we've seen with many of these programs, even going back to someone, I think that this is a good example, like Tristan Newton when he was over at UConn, where he had a solid year number 1, but it was really in year number 2 where he truly blossomed.
Yeah, I think, in this current landscape, you got to take it year by year because you never know when someone could leave again, but I would say I'm with you overall on that sentiment. Like, I don't think we'll see the best version of Kyan Evans this year, but hopefully he'll spend 2 more years in Chapel Hill and UNC could really get him as a senior as sort of being, if not the alpha in the backcourt, someone who's a high level second option who can give you 14 a night shooting 40+% from 3. I think that shooting ability and is the way he plays and is so good without the ball, his ability to relocate and find the window in the defense to fire away. It makes him a really easy guy to pair with pretty much any type of player in the backcourt. But yeah, at least this year it's looking like, unless Bogovac comes in and is immediately like the main ball handler, you need Evans to prove pretty quickly that he can be the one who initiates the offense, the one who can make the right reads out of ball screens and kind of get guys in position or whatever it may be. So yeah, I'm with you. I think the UNC roster, has been criticized, and I think that comes with the $14 million price tag, which I totally get. And I would even say, from both a fan perspective and an analyst perspective, after what Hubert Davis and co did last year, I don't fault anybody for being skeptical. They need to prove something. They were 14-11 in mid January last year, maybe even early February. I can't remember the exact timeline before they ran through the back half of their ACC schedule, but it was against like teams that just were not competitive. Like this is a team that was pretty bad last year, even though it had a solid finish by the metrics standpoint. But yeah, it was pretty bad for most of the year, to where I get the skepticism, I get the criticism, but I at least can see the vision to where, the starting five could work really well together. It seems like the role allocation should be a lot smoother than it was last year, and you actually have some guys in the front court who can anchor you and hopefully give a higher floor as the backcourt sort of sorts itself out.
Yeah, but I think that backcourt is going to be really the question mark for UNC, as I feel like it's a role reversal from what we've seen last season, as Riley Davis, who does such great work over at HXCBB, joined me on Coast to Coast Hoops. And how about if we take a look at the other team in the great state of North Carolina, NC State, because I just still look at them from what we saw last year to this year, and I feel like they've had one of the most impactful off seasons in all of college basketball, because you hire on Will Wade, you get Darion Williams, you get all of these guys in the transfer portal, and I'm so curious to see how it's going to look year number one, because I think that this team has made some really, really good moves, and I think that it pays off right away. But I think the question is, can they really make that leap year number one, or may it take year number two or year number three to be able to do so?
I'm with you completely. I'm high on Will Wade as a coach. I think when you look at how he turned around McNeese. I get, like, with McNeese, he probably had a higher payroll than any other team in the Southland, but still, to like dominate that league the way he did, and to even make himself this appealing destination for down transfers and find a strategy that worked, I think that speaks a lot to kind of his aptitude as a coach. You look at what he did at LSU. He elevated a program that really, since Shaquille O'Neal has not been there, has not really been on top. And even look at some of the talent that wasn't maximized there when you see guys like Ben Simmons who came through the program. Like that, I wouldn't say LSU is an easy job that he took to pretty good heights, to where, I think in the long run, it'll work out well for NC State. I think that's about as good of a hire as they could hope for. With this roster, I don't know if it's a little more... I think some of the hype around this roster is more based on Will Wade, the coach, than the individual pieces. And I think they won 12 games last year. You're going to get excited for your team when you have a full reset after such a horrible year. But I'm a big fan of Paul McNeil as a potential breakout candidate. I think Darion Williams should be one of the 5 best players in the ACC. I can see the vision with Terrence Arsenault if he can build off of what he did in the NCAA tournament. Aside from those 3, who knows what we're going to get out of Trey Holloman? He's kind of been a complimentary guard throughout his career, and I get that, with Paul McNeil and Quadir Copeland in the fold, they're not going to ask him to do everything, but I think he's coming in there to be like the number one guy, to be the true point guard. I know that was a big point of contention at Michigan State, with even why he left, was just Jeremy Fears was the floor general, and what's that leave Trey Holloman to be? So I know he's coming in with those expectations, and I'm just not entirely sure if he's someone you want playing like 30 minutes a game. And then Alan Lubin's a player who I'm very familiar with after seeing him this past season, and to me, he's still kind of a guy you're hoping you don't need to play him much more than like 20. If he can be in a timeshare with Paul and Mbaya at the 5, I think that would be best for their outlook, just because Lubin, he's undersized, doesn't really have much of a game outside of like 5 feet from the basket. He's really physical and a good rebounder inside, and pretty good lob threat considering his height. I still have a ton of questions about his defense. He was really not good defensively for most of the year at UNC. Felt like it took him a long time to get comfortable. Like, he fumbled a lot of passes, didn't really show good hands for most of the year until really that final, let's say, 3 to 4 week stretch. He got a little more reliable. So as a whole, yeah, there's some pieces that I really like, but I would still say with State, it's more of a long-term optimism with Will Wade there than this team is going to be awesome, in my opinion.
Oh, I do think that with NC State, it's going to be such an interesting year, and I think that they're going to be good year number one, but it could be a Louisville situation where they take off in year number one, but you're really feeling it in year 2, year 3, and then you go down the list. As joining me on the show, we've got Riley Davis, who does such great work over at HXCBB, joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, and want to open this up to you. What's a team or two that you take a look at right now that maybe is outside of a lot of these too early, top 15, top 20s, what have you, that you take a look at it and you're just feeling bullish about them and you feel like they deserve a little bit more love for what they've done this offseason?
I'll give you 2. The first is staying in the ACC with Virginia. I am a big fan of the way they retooled their roster. Big fan of Ryan Odom. Love that he was able to poach Griff Aldridge from Longwood, a guy who's been to 2 NCAA tournaments as a head coach. I'm glad he was able to get him to come with him. And even looking at their roster, Jakari White, Malik Thomas, just having 2 bucket getters on the wing will be such a a sight for sore eyes after the past couple of years for Who's fans. I think their international front court with Thie de Ritter and Johan Grunlo, two of the better international imports coming over. You got a Nyenzo, like post-hype sleeper maybe, like having him as your backup five-man, I think should be really good. Chance Mallory, too, another freshman, like probably would have been closer to a five-star kid had he not been listed at 5'9". Like he's short, but he's really skilled. So that's one in my conference. But moving over to the Big Ten, I've liked what USC has done a lot too. And I think bringing in Rodney Rice, who was one of the better players in the Big Ten last year, who's I think ready to show that he can be the alpha in the backcourt. Of course, you have CBM and all the craziness that comes with him. And Jacob Kofi at the 5, who's another like kind of under the radar pickup. Kofi is really skilled, like can pass a little bit. He's mobile. He can guard multiple positions, and he's got some bounce to him to where we've seen Muss succeed with these types of teams that don't really have like the true point guard. I think that's the knock on them. But he's done that before where he's plucked a wing out of the portal and made him a point guard, whether you're looking at like Jalen Tate or even JD Note, who ran the offense for those Arkansas teams. But I don't worry about it as much. I'll be really curious to see if Muss finds some of that mojo that made him a hot commodity in the coaching ranks not too long ago.
I think that's so well said by you. I do want to see if he's able to rise up, and I want to see what we're going to be able to get this season out of those two teams. And I'm so glad that you mentioned Virginia. I'm very high on them, and I feel like adding in there Malik Thomas, that was one of the better ads in the transfer portal. And always a great ad on this podcast is you, Riley. You do such a great job breaking down this great game of college basketball. So let the good people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, you can follow along at Riley_Davis3 on Twitter. You will see me doing some written work for Heat Check CBB. More so this summer, I've been doing video content for Sleepers Media, so you'll see me doing a video every day. Right now, I've been breaking down a lot of the NBA draft prospects, telling you 10 things you need to know about them, doing scouting reports as well. So yeah, please follow along.
Riley does an incredible job taking a look at this great game of college basketball and always lends such amazing insights. So big thanks to Riley for joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And if you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, Larry's DM, name me does not matter. So as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, and I'm going to be coming at you guys every single day on this podcast, regular season and off season, so I will be back with you guys once again tomorrow. Thank you.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.